The battle between the unconscious and conscious self is one that rages throughout all of literary history. Humanity's primal desires serve as a bottomless backdrop for our most profound stories, and no matter how many pens touch the subject, the unconscious will remain endlessly unknowable and interesting. One of many intriguing approaches to the idea comes from Gege Akutami and the work he did with Jogo. Jogo is an unaccounted for special grade curse, a being created from negative human emotions. He is part of a cursed group that stands as the antagonists of the first 2 seasons of Jujutsu Kaisen's story. Jogo is one of my favorite side villains in recent years. For early Jujutsu Kaisen, he serves as essentially the 4th major villain, behind the likes of Sukuna, Kenjiku, and Mahito. His character captures everything we should be looking for in secondary villains, as he leaves a lasting mark on the themes and emotion of the story without dominating screen time. Jogo believes that negative emotions are the only pure emotion we have and seeks to create a world where curses are no longer hunted by Jujutsu sorcerers. Jogo's personality is brash and arrogant, but his ideology adds layers to Jujutsu Kaisen's commentary on the conscious and unconscious mind. He and all of the curses embody the unconscious self, our primal desires taken destructive form. His development from arrogant curse to empathetic figure is an important one, so join me in understanding the tragic depth of Jujutsu Kaisen's most misunderstood curse, Jogo. Welcome to Annie Essays. Here we overanalyze anime and manga, with each video on the channel created under the belief that anime, same as film and literature, is worthy of in-depth criticism. If you enjoy my videos, then consider checking out my Patreon or YouTube membership. More information about benefits at the end of this video. It can be easy for side villains to feel one-dimensional. With so much focus on other, more notable characters, secondary villains tend to have their screen time wrung. This results in these characters often lacking unique motivations, having little development, or bland character designs, which makes it hard for the audience to care. Jogo is an example of a character that has all 3 of those attributes in spades. Jogo is one of the more powerful characters we meet in Jujutsu Kaisen, with his initial plot significance being relatively simple: to show off the strength of Satoru Gojo. We first meet Jogo talking with Kenjiku as they make an alliance. Jogo comes off as arrogant and bashful in this scene, believing in the purity of his strength and the morality of his cause. To him, all curses are the unconscious given form, but what I love about this introduction scene is how none of the regular people can see the curses, except a worker who feels their presence, a perfect showcase of Jujutsu Kaisen's physical storytelling. Most of the time, Gege leans into action, but here he does it with just violence. First, the bystander can feel the presence of the curses and runs out of the shop, a literal depiction of the conscious mind feeling the horrors of our negative unconscious emotions. Jogo's overreacting and lack of concern for the people around him equate to a pretty notable introduction, as he torches every person in the room while declaring he can take down Satoru Gojo. This moment suggests that maybe our violent and unfiltered way of thinking could one day cause our demise. As far as a villain introduction goes, this is really a standout. In this scene, we also get Jogo's outlook on the world and his goal. Jogo suggests that humans lie about their true intentions, denying their primal desires, which are actually the purest form of their own thoughts. Those desires taking form of curses like Jogo himself. Jogo wants to purify the world, or make curses the dominant life form, and to do so, he needs to eradicate all humans. While his outlook on the purity of emotions is misguided, his goal is not hard to grasp and even empathize with. Jogo did not choose to be a curse, yet he was born into a world where his kind are hunted and exorcised. Jogo's introduction adds to the ideas of the series right away, and then he serves what seems to be his plot function, showing off the true strength of Gojo. Jogo attacks the strongest sorcerer in the world and shows off an amazing display of power, yet it's only a drop in the bucket compared to Gojo. The difference is so massive, Gojo leaves this fight and brings Yuji so he can teach him about domain expansion. Jogo's taunting sets Jogo ablaze, but it matters little. The special grade curse just doesn't stand a chance. Thanks to the help of Hanami, Jogo makes it out alive, with the development of his ideology and character to come more in the second season of the anime. For a while, he takes a back seat as Mahito and Kenjaku influence the narrative and flex themselves as the two major antagonists, while Sukuna awaits. A singular person stands in the way of Jogo's dream. Like I said, side villains don't necessarily get the screen time to have wide-sweeping developments, but the best of the bunch often recontextualize other events of the story. Jogo has a goal to wipe out an entire species, but can't do it due to one person. And doesn't that sound familiar? Before the Shibuya Incident occurs, we jump into the past and learn about what happened with Suguru Geto and Gojo. One of the more interesting things this backstory does is reflect Jogo's dream. Both of these characters essentially have the same goal, to rid the world of humans so their kind will be unburdened by them. Geto viewed the unconscious thoughts of humans as a bad thing, where Jogo sees those thoughts as the only pure thing in the world. These are two characters of a different species who have come to the same misguided conclusion, that they are better than the rest and should exterminate those who are different from them. Here, the morality of their goals isn't interesting insight, both are morally bankrupt. But what is interesting is that two people, isolated from each other, come to similar conclusions about how to make the world better for themselves. The major difference is that Suguru Geto didn't always think this way, but by experiencing horrifying events, he turns to a horrifying plan to fix the world. Sorcerers do influence Jogo's dream, but more importantly, he has this innate desire born from the negative emotions which created him. Geto's conscious mind lost to his unconscious desire to rid himself of pain, and his development looms over what could happen to Jogo in Shibuya. When we enter this arc, we fully understand that curses in humans may not be so different after all. Jogo is one of the various pawns Kenjaku uses to get Gojo sealed. Jogo leads the attack against Gojo, and he tries to taunt and tilt the strongest sorcerer. For my money, Jogo is the centerpiece when it comes to showing off the levels of Jujutsu Kaisen's power scaling. His strength can't even touch Gojo, but he clears most other Jujutsu sorcerers. In Shibuya, he starts to unravel the facade of a purely malevolent outlook on life and reveals empathy and camaraderie underneath. You see that when Hanami is killed, and Jogo's demeanor changes entirely. He still kills humans with no remorse, but the loss of a close friend wounds him deeply. In the background of the series, we have seen the emotion of these special grade curses start to come about, and it makes you wonder if that arrogant persona put on by Jogo was not covering up his own unconscious desires. This leads us to his encounter with Sukuna. After sealing Gojo, the death of Hanami, and discovering the death of Dagon, Jogo torches anyone he sees as the anger and sadness of losing his allies becomes too much. It is in that context that he finds Itadori passed out and starts to feed him more fingers to awaken Sukuna and try and convince him to join his cause. Upon awaking, Sukuna tells Jogo that if he beats him in a battle, he'll join. Otherwise, Sukuna will continue his own plan. When I first came across this decision, I was a little taken back by how willing Jogo was to give up his life in this battle. After his encounter with Gojo early in the show, it seemed like he would take a different approach to getting Sukuna on his side, but a reality has set in for Jogo at this point that humanizes him in a way we don't want to see for a curse. Jogo had just lost two of his closest companions, and now the only way his ideal can live on is by risking his life. So Jogo engages in combat with the King of Curses, and even with showing off an impressive display of strength, is still nowhere near Sukuna. But unlike his battle with Gojo, Sukuna tells him he is strong, that he will remember his strength. In the same vein, he tells Jogo that he wasn't strong enough in his resolve, and that's why he wasn't able to accomplish his goal. Hearing Sukuna tell him he is strong, tears start to fall down his face. In a moment that can only be described as human, Jogo overflows with emotion as he meets his end. In the afterlife, he sees his allies and tells them to leave their dreams to Mahito and the rest. It doesn't matter if they live to see, they just hope one day the world will be a safe place for curses to exist. The empathy we feel towards Jogo's character at the end shows how well he was written into the narrative by Gege. His last overflow of emotion suggests a pretty profound idea about the human experience, that there is no conscious mind without the unconscious. Humans spend a lot of time trying to neglect the unconscious mind, or in this case, our negative emotions, but we should be acknowledging its existence. Of course, that doesn't mean accepting darker desires underneath, but instead of ignoring them, we should try to understand them, and by doing so, it will help us become a more complete person. Jogo's dream was misguided from the start, because the thesis of his morality didn't take into account his own unconscious feelings. He believed his thoughts to be pure, that the unfiltered nature of negative human emotions gave them more value. But you can't have negative emotion without positive. For Jogo, he was never going to reach his ideal because he rejected a side of himself. A more empathetic and emotional person sat beneath the arrogant exterior, and it comes to light in this final battle. Jogo embodies human unconscious desire for violence and destruction. When he meets his end, the tears that flow from his face suggest empathy as the unconscious mind overtakes what he used to consider pure desires. His end again reminds us of Geto. The two of them were connected through approach, showing how even a curse-in human can think in similar patterns. Jogo assumed that he lived with thoughts unfiltered, but maybe that's impossible. Maybe all thinking creatures are bound to the good and bad. The essence of Jogo's tragic character is found here. Most understand him as a curse whose arrogance took him too close to the sun, a being whose pride got him killed. But Jogo is like so many of us. He overvalues his own mind and outlook on life while diminishing the perspective of others. His innate assumption is that his outlook is correct and never allows himself to see anything else. But his revelation during his character's conclusion shows that he could have followed a different path if he was just given a chance. Jogo's search for purity is irrelevant, as we should all embrace the messiness of life. Trying to only think pure thoughts is an easy way to find yourself working through more issues. We all should take a step to embrace and learn everything about ourselves, finding emotions in places we never thought possible. And this doesn't mean acting on intrusive thoughts, but acknowledging that they can exist. There is no battle between the unconscious and conscious mind. There's just your mind. And you should always be searching for ways to better understand it. That is quite the profound idea for a side villain of a Shonen Jump series, and for me, a big reason why he is one of the most notable characters in Jujutsu Kaisen. His introduction was captivating, and his role in the story helped us understand the level of Jogo and later Sukuna, but it is his similar approach to executing his goals that makes his character stand out amongst a pretty stacked cast. The battle of the unconscious and conscious mind is one that rages even more explicitly through a lot of Jujutsu Kaisen's character, but Jogo's small, almost background arc of discovering his own unconscious thoughts leaves a lasting impact on the narrative. It is important to search the depths of yourself. Discovering new emotions can feel daunting, but if you allow yourself to feel and experience a wider range of thoughts and feelings, you'll be better suited to finding and pursuing your dreams and aspirations. For Jogo, he was never going to succeed in his dream because he failed to see the wider picture of how he and humans are reflections of one another. For Jogo, his negative emptiness takes place on the conscious level, while empathy manifests in the unconscious. Many view his character as power-scaling fodder for the story, but his emotional revelation in Shibuya helps us better see all of the characters' journeys to reconciling their conscious and unconscious thoughts, understanding that there doesn't need to be a conflict between the two if you embrace both. The tragedy of Jogo's character is that he was never put in a circumstance to explore what life could be like. if he accepted all sides of his emotions. Thank you for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Jogo has always been a favorite of mine, so it was really fun to do a pretty literary reading of him. I want to give a big shout out to all of my patrons and YouTube members who are such a big support of the channel. If you enjoy my videos, then consider checking out my Patreon or YouTube membership. Through the first tier, you get access to this channel's Discord server where I host my buddy anime watch-alongs. You also will get your name at the end of every video and exclusive channel updates. Thank you again for watching the video, and I hope to see you in the next one.